Hi class, I'm going to show you how to run an F-test or a one-way ANOVA. In the last video, I showed you how to run a t-test, and that's when you wanted to look at two groups. However, if your third variable has 3 or more groups, you will be running an F-test, also known as a one-way ANOVA. So examples of having 3 or more groups could be if your third variable was relationship status or religious affiliation, or if you wanted to look at gender, but instead of only having male and female, you also have non-binary or any other selections that you wanted to include, as long as there is 3 or more. For this specific data set, I have data for you using birth order as an example for your third variable. So this was empathy scores and birth order differences. Each of these numbers represents a score on empathy and then what condition the participants were born in. So whether they were firstborn, whether they were the middle child, which just means they were not the first and they were not the last, and then the last born. Now, these days we don't have as traditional types of families, we'll have blended families. However, if you want to make sure that you're just using this class as practice for more complex types of data analysis in the future, just keep it to these 3 for just now, right? You can do much more complex and much more actual intricate and more accurate types of data analysis later in the future. For now, I just need you to know the basics. So here, like I said, we are looking at an example of birth order. And I also want you to pay attention to how this is laid out. So this data set is already clean. It's already been organized. And when you are first distributing your surveys and then collecting the information that comes from it, it is not going to be this neat. Just like in the t-test, you do have to go in and organize it and sort it so that it makes sense and so that it's set up like this in a way that's easy for us to do our analysis, which I'll explain in just a few more minutes. So if you remember in the t-test, and I'm just going to show you briefly, I think I have it here somewhere. Let's see. Okay, so this is the full set of what we had, so what you downloaded. And then the t-test, we just looked at gender, so column A, and then we looked at, I believe it was narcissism, so that would be column D and all of these scores. So we put it right next to each other. We got rid of age, we got rid of the Rosenberg self-esteem scale scores for participants, and we had it side by side so that you could see for this particular respondent who is in cell or who is in row 2, this represents somebody who is female, identifies as female, and then age, what they scored on Rosenberg, and then what they scored on the NPI. But we were really only looking at their gender to match up with their score. So if you remember how we had this set up, which was almost exactly like this, minus, so deleting these 2 middle columns, then you'll notice that one column has a label, right? So this is a category. And then the other column for narcissism has numerical scores. So when you were running your test, you were able to just look at the data, numerical data from one column, and then the 2 groups were from this one column, and your groups were female and then male, right? So that was when we did the t-test. When you're looking at your third variable being numerical, so you had to choose either an interval or ratio scale. Those interval or ratio scales allows us to do these types of more intricate tests. So if you did not have these numerical numbers, these numerical scores, then the most you could do is run correlation. We want to go and dig a little bit deeper. And the way that we do that is by having scales that are interval or ratio. So I had narcissism scores in the last example, and you were able to see that for the groups, it was females versus males, or we were looking at gender differences. So we were looking at these scores from cell, it was organized in a different way, but it was from cell like D2 all the way to, in this representation, it would be D39. That would be the group of females for narcissism. And then in D40, I believe that's where it starts, all the way down to the rest of it, that is where you would have the group for males. So looking at that third variable. Okay, let's come back to our current data set. So here, you are looking at a structure where you actually have to, an organization structure where you do have to clean this data yourself and organize it in a way that is going to make running an F test very easy. So here, the columns should be side by side, and it's up to you whether you want to do lastborn, middleborn, firstborn, because this is an ordinal scale, meaning that there is an order. There's no specific number or equal amounts of numbers. So it's not like firstborn has to be exactly 1 year older than the next child, which is 1 year older than the next child. That's not how it works in real life. So even though these are numerical scores, these numerical scores are actually representing empathy and not representing the value for which order the child was born. We just know, individual or participant, we just know that they were either firstborn, a middle child, or lastborn. Okay, so in the F test, ANOVA, the grouping variables and its numerical values together are organized side by side instead of having the variables themselves side by side. So I hope that makes sense. The variable, this is one variable. So birth order is one variable, but there are 3 conditions or levels for birth order in the way that we set it up right now. So like I have here, you will either copy and paste it. You can also transform your data, or you can open a new sheet, such as here in the very bottom. That's what I did for this. I just cut and paste, but I already had it organized, so it was an easy cut and paste. Whatever you remember from statistics, you can use that. There are also plenty of other YouTube videos out there that will help you to organize your data set. So it doesn't come like this. It'll, your Google Forms will collect the data for you based off of the scoring instructions that you put into it, and then you will have to do this yourself. Okay, so once you have these scores, you're actually going to label the groups. Again, like I said, it doesn't matter, so you do have to do this yourself. So here's everyone who was firstborn, here's everyone who was middle child, and here's lastborn. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we actually have 11 in each category. That means we had 33 respondents, right? So of these 33, we are going to run our F test. So it does not matter if you have more than 3. When you're looking at Excel, it cannot distinguish for you. So you do have to label these yourselves. I'm going to show you, once we do run the data, why it's important to actually organize it just like how I have it here for whatever your third variable is. Okay, so each of these numbers right here represents the empathy score, and then where it's located. So all of these in column B for this Excel sheet are firstborn children, and then everybody who has a score in column C is going to be a middle child, and then anybody who has the score in column D is going to be the lastborn child. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to actually run this test. So you're going to go into this data tab, just like how I showed you in the previous videos. From here, you're going to go make sure that you have the tool pack already added in. Again, like I said, you only have to do it once. The first time you do it, it's pretty much always going to be there unless you reset your computer. So here, you're going to choose this box, data analysis. it's the very first one that says ANOVA single factor. And this just choose ANOVA single factor. Click OK. I had this already because I just ran it before I started recording this. I messed up a couple times, so this is like my third time recording. I forgot to turn on the audio, my bad, but I made sure to have it this time. So what it's going to look like when you first open it up and then select ANOVA single factor is you're going to have the input range. Click on this box to make sure that the cursor is blinking, and then you are going to actually select each of these group labels and then drag and drop once you have all of these cells. So from here, you're going to click labels in the first row because your labels are in the first row that you had actually selected. So all you have to do now from here is click on OK. And then what pops up is your output. So you have your summary. If it's hard to see, make sure that you widen it so that you can see what all of the words mean. So if you can actually just look at the data and tell if there's significance or not, because it's easy for you to tell with what you had tested, then you could actually practice writing up a report or just writing a couple of statements to say what you found. I'm going to make another video on how to read these scores in more depth. So wait for that. Usually what we're going to look at is the F value. So this one, and then we're also going to compare it to the critical value. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but you can also check by looking at the p-value. So checking that way. So remember to record or report your mean or average. So this column that says average also means the mean and also the variance, right? These are the numbers that are important for you to be recording into your results section once we get there. Okay, so I was trying to make this video shorter so that I could do another one for you that was separate with a different title on how to analyze. I'm also planning on doing one to help you once I get a new data set to clean data and to help you organize it. So I wanted to keep this shorter and I hope this was helpful. Run it a couple times to make sure that you're very comfortable doing this. Remember, if you only have two groups, whether it is gender, male, female, whether you are doing a study on whether somebody is an athlete or not, also if they are in a relationship or not, if those are only two groups that you're looking at, you will be running a t-test. If you have 3 or more groups for your third variable, you will run a ANOVA or F test. If you are doing a psychological construct for your third variable, I approved these for a few of you who have had more advanced statistics or you're more comfortable analyzing the data. You could actually, between those scales that you've chosen, as long as they are ratio or interval, then you could actually run t-test on all 3 of your variables together. You cannot run them at the same time. So for example, if you were looking at, let's say that you're looking at Rosenberg self-esteem inventory, narcissistic personality inventory, and then you were also, your third variable was, let's say it was extroversion or introversion from the BFI, from the Big 5 inventory. If those are your 3 variables, your third variable is a psychological construct, then you would do, so for Rosenberg self-esteem inventory, and then you would have, you would run a t-test with your BFI score and the Rosenberg self-esteem, and then you'd run another one with your narcissistic personality inventory scores and the BFI, right? So depending on which characteristic you chose and you scored for. So that is where it would be a little bit different. That's a little bit more looking into detail. So if you are at all confused about your third variable, make sure that you go in, and I just want you to have practice running these analyses. So go ahead and choose something that is going to just have two conditions, nothing more than that. And that's where I'm going to end for today. I will talk to you guys soon.